right? Like, we can solve all of this. We just distribute it. And so the question for me is like an ignorant 26-year-old staring into Rosalind's eyes. It's just like, then why haven't we? You know, like, if we can solve this, then why don't we? These are the questions that were just sort of like raging through my head as I continued to get lost. I kept getting lost, kept getting lost, kept getting lost. If any of y'all like to dance, you must go to the continent of Africa. You will never dance here the way that they dance there. This was 4 in the morning. The only light is the moon, and dust so thick it clogged your lungs, but you dance anyway. They're celebrating their first opportunity of having a job. Group had gone into the displacement camps. We had a microeconomic program where they gave them a job for 6 months, but not only did they give them a job, they taught basic skills, savings and investment. So they were to take that income from the jobs, push it into their own company, begin creating small amounts of income. Right? And as that grew, they were able to hire more people. These things grew and they collided into one another, and as the war subsided and they began to have these economies and these base level skills, everything began to grow. And so what they were celebrating was their first opportunity, being able to bring food home to their families in a way that they had earned, a way they had honor and dignity. So they're waiting for a handout. So they dance. All damn night. Kept getting lost, kept getting lost, kept getting lost, and ended up in Democratic Republic of Congo. The original idea with Congo was to go in for 5 days, run all we could, and then get out. Went in and we found signs of destruction everywhere. This is a van that had been exploded by a rocket grenade. Found abandoned children just littering the streets by the hundreds. As we went further out, by the thousands. And on the 5th day, we found a military encampment that was beating former child soldiers, treating them as enemies of the state. We freaked out. We just never seen anything like this before. We started calling everybody we knew. You gotta get these kids pulled out. You gotta get these kids pulled out. You gotta get these kids pulled out. And no one returned our phone calls, because who are we? We're just 26. Like, we don't have influence, we don't have connections, we don't have credentials. So because no one returned our phone calls, we spent the next 8 hours just swapping stories with these boys. And like storytelling, man. It's strange and it's powerful. We're sitting there sharing stories, and it's like, I mean, let's be real. Like, we lived very, very different lives. I grew up in San Diego, like went to the University of Austin, would travel the continent because I wanted to. They were taken at 8, at 10 forced to kill, at 12 they're being beaten. As you're sitting there sharing stories, it's like, we feel hunger the same way. I mean, we feel thirst the same way. We laugh at the same jokes, although there's like a 30-second delay because of the translator. I mean, we long for our families the same way. They've been away from theirs for 4 years. I've been away from mine for 4 months. Like, the differences were real, for sure. Just like the differences between Eve and I, or you and I, or any of us. But the commonalities were overwhelming. Those boys told us that the kids who were too small to carry a gun were being sent to the front lines, armed with only a whistle. They were being sent out as human shields. The idea is that late at night, they would go out to blow the whistle, scare away the enemy, and then failing that, they were supposed to receive the bullets with their bodies, and in falling, create a blockade for other soldiers to hide behind. I mean, we just didn't know what to do. One of the boys' shirts said "Extinct Forever," which felt very fitting given what happened to his childhood. He ended up exposing the encampment to the UN. The kids got pulled out. Ultimately, the encampment got shut down. It was a pretty heavy day, like definitely more intense than any day I'd had at that point. And I went home that night and just bawling through tears, chugging down red wine, like screaming at the moon and punching holes through walls, wrote a blog called Falling Whistles. You know those nights when you just rage and you pour it all out on a page. I sent it out to about 80 friends and family. So my mom, my dad, my grandma, my brother, my best buddies, just sent it as my Google group. And they just forwarded it around the world. They forwarded it and forwarded it and forwarded it and forwarded it, and I woke up the next day with hundreds and then thousands of messages in my inbox saying, what do we do? How do we help? Why is this happening? What's going on? And it was like, like I have no idea. I just got here. Like, I know nothing. And the big question for me was like, why? Like, why do I know nothing? I went through 23 years of education. I love to study. I love to read. I was never asked to learn anything about this continent. Not their role in our world or our role in their world. Not the political influence that they have on us or the economic influence that we have on them. Nothing. My ignorance was overwhelming. And so we just decided to figure it out. We made big press passes, saddled up, and we went out. We went out, we went out, we went out, we went out. What we found was a gorgeous country, as beautiful as anywhere I've ever seen in the world. Second largest rainforest in the world. More natural resources than anywhere else. Are you ready for this? This number blew our mind. Total estimated resource wealth of Congo, what's in the ground? $27 trillion. Larger than the US and European GDP combined. Women who wore the most miraculous colors, yellows and greens and oranges and purples, almost as much fabric around their heads as they wore around their bodies. Men who wore meticulous suits. They might live in a hut and walk across a mud field before they get to your meeting. By the time they get to that meeting, they will have polished their shoes to a perfect shine, made sure their tie is on perfectly straight. People who have been beaten down by war for over a century, who carry themselves with tremendous pride in a country that had been ravaged by war. Note to self, don't smile when taking photos of child soldiers. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I was just nervous. Like, I'd never done anything like this before. This boy was 19. Come on in, Dad. He was taken at 9. You can see there's not a trace of a child left in him. These boys were both in their teens. We went deep into the surrounding base camp, all the surrounding military groups, asking, why is this happening? What's going on? Who's funding you? What's it going to take to stop it? This is the base camp in my mind. They're a movement of patriots. This man to my left, this man is named Major Alexi. Major Alexi was 21, studying poetry and philosophy at University of Washington. How many of you guys are 21? 21, studying poetry and philosophy, or broke out. He went and fought for the side he thought was most patriotic. He's now 28, he's committed unspeakable acts. Raped women, abducted children, burned villages. When you sit down and have a coffee with him, he still seems a whole lot like that 21-year-old who's studying poetry and philosophy. I mean, is he a monster? Sure. Does he deserve justice? Absolutely. Is he stuck inside of an impossible situation that none of us will ever fully understand? Absolutely. The deeper we dug, the more we saw humanity and even the most violent creatures. Honestly, the more we saw ourselves. These boys have been tied up and beaten by the warlord in Kunda. He asked his boy to draw what he had seen through a tree on fire and a gun was plucked coming out of it. This is in Kunda. He was the dominant warlord of East Africa for years. He's currently arrested in Rwanda and wanted by the International Criminal Court. But they can't go get him because the citizens of the most powerful country in the world, us, don't know what the International Criminal Court is. So there's no public will, and so they have no clout to go and do what they know needs to be done. So he sits in Rwanda on a satellite phone, controlling his own army. I mean, he's a visionary. Speaks 5 languages, has press secretaries in 4, websites in 3. Been trained at military camps in China, Middle East, America. Another era, another time. Use Barack Obama. Today, getting mass organized.